I want to talk about Maximum Lawyer because, I mean, you both have successful separate careers. Can you take us through the history of Maximum Lawyer, about the origins, how it's grown? Like, how did you two start this?
So we were having lots of conversations about running our law firms, about the headaches, the heartaches, the fun, and the pain of running a law firm. And around this time, I was listening pretty regularly to a great podcast called I Love Marketing. And I thought it would be fun for us to start recording our conversations. And we used to do them on Skype, and some of our older episodes probably have background noise of trains going by or construction out on the street. It was a pretty low budget deal, but at first we just started talking to each other. And then the nice thing about the podcast was, as we started bringing on experts to help us figure out things that we were trying to work on in our own firm. So we sort of created the podcast that we needed for ourselves.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. It's kind of fun. Just thinking about it, because we've been asked this a few times, and it's kind of fun to go back every time and think about it. Because, I always pick up extra things every time I think about it. I don't know about you, Jim, but like whenever we kind of like talk about like the origin of Maximum Lawyer, and some of the things that Jim left out is that he was the brainchild for the name of Maximum Lawyer. We were all brainstorming in a conference room. We had another partner at the time, and Jim, I almost called you James. Jim came up with the name of Maximum Lawyer, and because he was working on at the time Maximum Jim. He was trying to improve himself, and so he was like, "Oh, what about Maximum Lawyer?" It was perfect timing for coming up with the name of it. But I also think back to, I sat in his class, and he brought all these other people in, and it's funny how like he essentially what Jim's style was, let's bring in other people to teach the class. And so he would bring in, for each class, he'd bring in a new attorney to teach something. I mean, it was a really effective way, and it's very similar to what we've done on the podcast too. But he and I had run into each other at a Culver's. We had not talked we had not like run into each other and seen each other for a little bit, and we ran into each other at a Culver's, and that's whenever we started to talk again about running a law practice and brainstorming all these ideas. And they're like, "Oh, let's do the podcast." And so that's really what it was. And Jim's right; it was to help our own firms. It was really we wanted to talk about things that were helping us, and that's been a massive benefit for the two of us, because we get to talk to fantastic law firm owners, we get to talk to fantastic business owners, but we also get to talk to people that are struggling and seeing what they're doing wrong, and we can kind of adjust what we're doing based on what we hear. So it's been a really cool experience for both of us. We've been able to learn quite a bit.
So obviously the Maximum Lawyer Facebook group, it has to be either the most popular or among the most extremely popular groups for attorneys to get feedback from their peers. So did you ever imagine that the group would become this successful when you first started it? And why do you think lawyers are so comfortable engaging in this space?
Well, I'm a little surprised in the success as to how it's used more than anything, because the initial idea for the group was just create a community for our listeners to kind of hang out and talk and talk to each other. I think now it's used mostly as like a resource for information about things, whether that be we kind of joke like you can kind of go in there and figure out like what's the best scanner, or what's like every week there's a new one about like, well, what's the best answering service, like, so you can get information like that and make your own decision. So I'm a little surprised as to how it's used now. I think that the way the guild is used is much more similar to the way the big group used to be. We kind of differentiate the two between the big group and the guild. And so I'm a little surprised when it comes to that. I'm not surprised by the number of people in it. It's one of those things where we've been putting out good content. I'm not ashamed to say that we've been putting out good content for 6-7 years now. And so I'm not surprised by that, but I am surprised by how it's been used though.
We very actively kick people out that have a negative outlook or that are complaining about things, and I think that's really helped. I also think that running a law firm is a pretty isolating activity. that no one knows the pressures of the law firm owner other than other law firm owners or maybe other business owners. And there's things that you can say to each other in the Facebook group that you wouldn't be able to say to your team members. And some of our best episodes are the ones where we're the most vulnerable or the most real and talking about the things that really suck. And I think that people were just looking for connection, and we're looking for people that are going through the same thing. And so we started the Facebook group, and then all of a sudden people started participating. And when they started participating, then, you started having friends around the country who may not even practice the same kind of area of law that you do, but that you feel a real connection to because they told you about a struggle, they told you about something they overcame. And so we started this group, and then, we had, there's Bernard in Alabama, and there's, I could name 7 attorneys right now from Alabama: Kyra, Mo, Kristen. So there's all kinds. So we have all these, and I can see them and picture them. And then we had our first conference, and it was like, these people that I know electronically, now I know in real life. And so it was just really, really organic, but it was also really, really tapping into a need that I think people were having.